All right, welcome to the Whitetail Weekly Deer Detective series. I just made that up, but I think that's what I'm going to roll with here. Essentially, what I'm going to start doing, because this time of year I get all these questions about, how I should be watching the weather, when I should make this move, what do you think about this trail cam picture, how do you age this deer? All of the questions that I get from clients and friends and customers and colleagues and other industry professionals, whatever it might be, I'm going to start addressing them every single week right here on this platform, kind of a quick and raw type format. You can see I do a lot of video calls with my clients because I'm not a consultant, I'm a coach. So we talk through a lot of things and explain things in a lot of great detail. So I'm all set up for this. Rather than throwing up my DSLR, I'm just going to crank these things out right here. I want to get them out there, and I want you, the audience, the viewer, the listener, whatever, to give me some feedback. Give me some questions. Give me the hardest questions that you've ever asked anybody in the space or wanted to ask someone in the space. Give me these questions, okay? I want to address these things because I'm going to be addressing these things for my clients and customers, right? So, if you don't already know me, my name is Thomas Mlsna. I am a habitat consultant and whitetail hunting coach. My business name is The Untamed Ambition. My whitetail specific habitat and hunting improvement program is called Whitetail Ambition. We do a lot of native restoration projects and ecosystem improvements across the board. My favorite type of clientele and the ones I work with most often are whitetail hunters. And they are the ones that really want to put the time and energy and money into their properties to make it better. I'm here to help make their properties better for a very, very long time, not just a short, brief moment in time, but sustainability. That's the name of the game. So I do holistic land management. Okay. Break. I also am a very, very avid whitetail hunter, and that drives me, that motivates me. I want to make sure that my kids have these hunting experiences and your kids too. So that's why I'm here. I do this for a living. If I give bad advice, I don't feed my kids. It's not really that dramatic, but kind of is, right? If I'm not good at my job, then my clients don't succeed and I don't get more clients. So that's pretty straightforward. But every year, like I said, this stuff comes up. I'm always looking for ways to connect more and give more advice to help more people. And I just don't have enough time in my week with all the things going on to create consistent content. So this is my early in the morning, crank this thing out because I'm going through all these motions anyways. So no different than if I were to jump on a call with a client and talk about a handful of things. That's what we're going to do in this Deer Detective video series. Now, I call it Deer Detective for a couple of reasons. One, I am obsessed with the thrill of pursuing these bucks and really trying to figure them out. Yes, I love the habitat manipulation and the habitat improvement, but that's really the opportunity side. We want to create that opportunity. I love that chess match and the mind games that come with these deer. Just to give you a brief glimpse into my background or my actual hunting situation, I grew up hunting a highly pressured area of southwestern Wisconsin. I grew up on a family farm, hunted that family farm, still hunt that family farm, and still love to hunt that family farm, and still deal with all the same problems, new problems all the time, actually. But I deal with a lot of pressure, human pressure, wildlife pressure, biological pressures, environmental pressures, all of the things that come with hunting deer. I deal with an exponentially large and unpredictable amount of those pressures on this property. The reason I keep going back and hunting it is because that keeps me honed, keeps that axe sharp when it comes to figuring out new problems on a daily basis for my client. I am not on that list of elitist hunters that you see on TV and that most of the consultants out there are. And nothing against them as human beings at all. Zero disrespect for them. Simply, you don't really learn or keep that axe sharp, right, when you're hunting situations where you've eliminated all of the variables. Okay, you have total control over, or for the most part, you'll never have total control until you're throwing up a fence, which you don't, some guys out there might be doing that. I'm not making accusations at all. I digress. I don't hunt a highly managed, huge chunk of land in a very, very productive area. That's what I'm trying to say. I hunt a situation that has a lot of problems and I'm solving them all the time, i.e., probably a lot more relatable to your situation than someone that has 600 acres in prime area of Iowa or Illinois or Ohio. Okay. Nothing against them. Probably great hunters. But killing big deer out of the same two or three tree stands all the time is not something that I've had the luxury of doing. And that's by choice. I've had opportunities to hunt those situations. I have opportunities to invest in those situations. And someday maybe I will. But right now, I really enjoy that pursuit, that chess match that comes with it. So I want to bring you along for the ride this year. And in the process of doing so, hope that some of the things that I'm doing, the way that I first and foremost look for data and then analyze that data can be applied to your situation and customized more. Instead of me saying, this is how to do this, I'm going to show you these are the things that I do and why. And then from that, hopefully you can glean some of that information and apply it to your situation. Because you can't ever actually learn how to hunt deer or a lot of things. There's a lot of things you cannot do through podcasts and YouTube. You can get some ideas and maybe some advice and maybe some perspective. But until you actually put yourself in a situation where you get that experience, you will not learn how to do these things. And I will say, uh, I'm not really one to toot my own horn. In fact, it's probably my biggest flaw as a consultant is I don't have the same level of ego as most consultants. And I don't say that in a negative way. I'm just stating facts. I don't like to talk about myself, but I do have a lot of street cred when it comes to killing early season bucks and big bucks. I mean, there's 400 plus inches of antler right there in two September deer. So if you want to learn how to do that, follow along closely. If you have a specific target buck that you're after right now, that's going to help you learn this stuff faster than anything else. That's how I learned faster, was to focus my attention on one specific deer, analyze that data, and start to figure things out. How my property operates, what's affecting deer movement, when it's affecting deer movement. That's how I came up with the four key elements: wind, pressure, food, and timing. We're going to use all that stuff to teach this and break this stuff down. But if you have a specific deer, you really want to follow along. My entire goal for this series is to help you kill that buck that you're after. Or at the very least, learn more about him so that when the next opportunity comes up, you're already ahead and collecting the right info and chasing the right rabbits down the right holes. A thing that I often say to clients and friends is breadcrumbs. Look for those breadcrumbs. This goes to that detective side of things. So we're looking for breadcrumbs. We are looking for tiny bits of information that move us forward across that board in the right direction. And that's what this whole series is going to do because we're going to walk through the season as the season progresses. I'm going to show you everything that I do and bring you along in my pursuit. And in the process of doing so, I'm going to tell you some stories of the past, some of these bucks right here, so that it's not all suspenseful what's going to happen in Thomas's hunting world, because that's not really what this is about. It's more of a, this is why I'm doing this thing, and here is an example of why, or the outcome of what happens when you do that. Okay. So that's the Deer Detective series in a nutshell. Now, to just give you a little status update on where I sit with my season, I actually just got back from out west. So full disclosure, I want to push these videos out earlier in the week, but I'm just getting caught up on life right now because I've been living in the mountains, sleeping on the ground, all my supplies on my back, or foraged or salvaged from the landscape. I just been out there for a couple of weeks. So back, took a gorgeous velvet mule deer, had a fantastic trip with my buddy Jason. It was awesome. Different topic of conversation, though I wanted to stress that because I go out there to hone my skills. It's a lot of the same stuff, understanding what makes deer do things that they do, anticipating movements, and then capitalizing on opportunities. Western hunting does very much relate to Midwestern type hunting if you look at the perspective a little bit differently. It's not 100% ambush type situations like we look at here, but I've also killed my last two whitetails from the ground. And we'll get into that later too. So, anyway, without any further delay, in this first series, in this first episode of Deer Detective, I just want to talk about early season deer. How do we find early season deer? I am actively looking for early season deer. I have a buck on my radar. I've already located him. A couple weeks ago, or probably a month ago, I saw him in a field, glassed him up from a distance. I waited until there was a rainstorm a couple weeks later, and I slipped in and I threw a cell camera up in there. Now, I only run a handful of cell cameras across our property. I have access to hunt a lot of land. It's broken up, it's not a one contiguous chunk. I have a lot of options, and I still only run just a couple cell cameras, specifically for stuff like this. Confirmation. Go out and scout, throw it up. That camera is not soaking there forever. It's not a steady stream of intel. It is confirmation that that buck is in the area. So I slipped in there during the rain to ensure the cover of my scent, the cover of my noise, the cover of my movement. There's a lot of foliage on right now, early season. That's a huge advantage. I slipped in there, hung that camera, and within a couple hours, I got a picture of that buck. It was one of the second deer. I think he was the second deer to show up on that camera. So confirmation. I just, in the last couple of days, have received more cell cam pictures of that buck in that area. Now I'm starting to put my plan together. Can I move on this deer early season? Do I want to move on this deer early season? What are the consequences of going after him or not going after him? Now, my situation again is a little different from yours, most likely because we have access to hunting here and here and here and up here, right? Just to kind of show you the layout of the land. If you only have access here, then you might have an early season buck on your property, or you might not. And he might just be right here, right? That buck that you're waiting for to show up in October, he might be living right here. That's not that big of a deal, right? But just understand that if you have an early season buck, it's there's a really good chance that he's not going to be there in that exact same location with as much consistency in October. So if you're an Iowa guy and you're waiting for October 1st, don't start drooling too much over especially velvet pictures, but any bucks that you're getting pictures of right now. So the way I kind of operate is, okay, I'm watching that buck, that's cool. Do I have pictures of him hard horned? If I do, now it's go time. So that's the situation I'm in right now. It's go time. This buck that I'm pursuing, the neighbor actually named him the dandelion buck because he is a dandy. That was the best he could come up with. I don't care. It's better than giving him numbers. I know there's this whole like stigma with giving animals names or hitless bucks names, but it is a unique identifier for that deer. And this deer is a nice clean 10 pointer, probably going to go upper 150s, mid 160s, maybe. Kind of deceiving, super long tine length. But he's only a 5-year old. I would prefer to hunt an older deer, but I'm not, again, in a situation where I can be quite as choosy. So I go after the oldest deer that I can find on the farm every year. And this year it happens to be the dandelion buck. So that's where I'm at. Okay. What's the next step in this deer detective process? Where is that next breadcrumb? How do I move forward in my pursuit of that deer? Well, it's Friday. I apologize for dropping this video a little bit late. I'm doing everything I can to crank it out, and that's one of the reasons for the rawness of it. But tomorrow is opening day. I could go after that deer tomorrow, but I'm not going to, and I'm going to show you why. So this is going to be your weekly weather update, and this is the opener. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Weather Underground, wonderground.com. That's where I go for my weather. I'm going to search lacrosse close to my location to show you how I view the weather. Okay, so there's a lot of data on here. Ignore most of it. Don't overwhelm yourself. More often than not, I go to the 10-day. Okay, so I love this layout on Wonderground. First thing I'm looking at, my eyes are just breezing through this right now. Okay, I'm looking ahead in the forecast and I see a lot of consistency here. If anything, climbing temps, right? Who wants to sit out in the woods when it's hot out? It's not super comfortable. Deer are not going to be moving a whole lot. But the big thing that comes when I look at this weather with the consistent temps, we've got mid to upper 80s and mid 60s overnight. That's it. So that tells me there's just a lot of stale air and there's not a lot of movement happening. But if we scroll down here, See how consistent that wind is? I really, really want to see wind changes and dramatic wind changes. That gets big deer on their feet. That's how I've killed the bulk of my mature bucks is playing wind changes and using them to my advantage. So I hate to say it, but I am not, and you probably should not be hunting opening weekend. Now, there's definitely always going to be situations where you've got very consistent bucks showing up in areas with really good access. Go for it. My situation, it's going to be a one or two shot deal, and I'm going to pressure the hell out of that spot, and it's going to be over. So there's a narrow window I have to capitalize, but I also need to back off and be careful. So keep that in mind. Now, as we look through the week, what days am I going to hunt? What days should I want to hunt? Well, again, the next 5 days, no bueno. If anyone's hunting the next couple days, if you're going out in the opener, stay out of your good spots. Observation stands are key. Observe, observe, observe. Get in a tree as far away from the activity as possible, but you can still see it. Sit in the truck, sit in the cabin, sit on the deck. Doesn't matter, but don't press in too soon because next weekend is actually looking pretty dang good. So what I'm looking at here again, let's go right down and look at the wind changes. South, 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 south. Now we're getting more west in there. And next Wednesday and Thursday, we've got a storm front moving through. And look at the temps drop. Big drop. And look at the wind. The south wind, pretty consistent. It's doing a flip-flop 180 here. There's some squirrely stuff that's happening on Friday. So be aware of that if you're in the stand. But also be aware that this is all subject to change, shift slightly, right? The weatherman's only right 50% of the time. So keep that in mind. But I'm using this. We break down those four key elements. The fourth of those four key elements is timing. Wind, pressure, food, timing. The timing element on a broader scale, we're looking at early season deer. On a narrower scale, zooming in here now, what is our timing? When should we attack? Well, as far as deer movement goes, it's looking like next weekend is going to be the best. Friday, Saturday, probably the best days. Sunday's probably not going to be bad either. Okay, so now the next thing I want to look at is that wind direction. Back to those four key elements. Wind is king. Wind dictates so much. We want to look at that wind. So what do we have for a wind that day? Well, it looks like in the morning it's mostly easterly, and then we got that squirrely stuff in the afternoon. A lot of east winds. That kind of is not great for me, to be honest. So here's my situation. These are bedding areas. Okay, these are areas that were logged, improved, much better bedding, not specific beds carved out, but increased cover, increased stand or stem density to provide more cover. Here we have a pretty consistent food source. I'm in ag country, driftless region of Wisconsin. All my neighbors, well, 85-ish% of my neighbors are Amish. A lot of pressure. Everyone hunts, everyone moves around, everyone uses most of their property. Not a lot of dead space. This is a feeding area. Early season bucks, you're going to find them based on the food, based on the bedding. And that bedding is largely related to the wind movement and the thermal air movement. How do they get those advantages? So here we have an alfalfa field. Specifically, I'm looking for first or second year alfalfa plantings. They're going to be the most palatable, and that's generally where the biggest bucks love to spend their time. The camera where I'm getting pictures of this buck is right here. Yellow represents deer movement, the basic trail system. Blue outlines basic bedding areas or general bedding areas. Red are previous hang and hunt type stand locations. I bounce around a lot. I'm very mobile. Uh, and white are potential stand locations. Here's my problem. This is really good bedding for a south and west wind. Now, I just got a picture of my buck on Monday. So if I go back, and this is what you can do as we're starting to compile, let me back up. These are really good bedding areas on south and westerly winds. That puts that wind coming off the hill, and it also goes with the thermals, which just creates a lot more consistency, and deer like to spend more time on that downwind side of the hill. And I can confirm this by looking back at historical information that I have trail camera pictures. In this situation, I only have a handful of pictures of this buck, but I also have the dates of times of other, firsthand observations and so on. And I can base it off of previous experience with previous deer and what I've learned through hunting these bucks over the years in this area, right? These are things that you should always be adding to your knowledge base. So if I go back and look at this recent trail camera picture, this is another great feature about weather undergrounds. You just go to history, and that picture is taken back on the 9th. And I'm going to view the weather history for that day, just a few days ago. So you can see south winds, with some west in there, but mostly south. We got a flipping of the wind right here, right at as the sun starts to drop. So don't play into that too much. Look at the more consistencies with the wind. And if you see a switch, if it sticks, that's one big thing that I look at. But this ultimately confirms south and west wind, good bedding there. That camera is set up right here. That buck was traveling, at least it seemed in the camera, he was traveling from this direction, probably coming from one of these bedding areas. Did he hit the field first and feed and drop back in? Or is he circling around and coming out to feed? We don't know. So east wind doesn't lend for as good a bedding there. Not saying those deer won't bed there if that wind is light and the thermals are pulling down. And it's a safer wind to hunt. So it's one of those situations where it might be worth trying. But the challenge here, as you see with this big ag field, is I have to cross the destination food source to get to the stand location. If that buck comes out and he stands right here when I pop out of the woods and I blow him off that field, it's game over. Now he knows he's being hunted. And when it comes to being a good detective, you don't want your suspect to know that he's being hunted, right? Because that's going to change his behavior. And all of the information that you get up until that point is potentially null and void. And that is the same if that deer sees that trail camera on that tree and freaks out, or if he sees you walking across the field. That is going to change everything, at least in that general area, especially if you're hunting deer like I am that are dealing with a lot of pressure. Pressure is a very relative thing. So these bucks find areas of low pressure, whatever that might mean. There might still be pressure, but it might be lower. Most likely it's lower than the surrounding area. So keep that in mind. So with the weather, again, looking at that weekly forecast, 10-day, what's the next week look like? I'm not hunting this weekend. I'm not too excited about it. I've got a lot of work planned for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. That's got to pay the bills. Thursday is going to be an office day. Friday, I'm on the road. I'm going to hunt. Friday and Saturday. In fact, I have a Saturday appointment that I think I'm going to have to reschedule. So that's the days. So keep that in mind. Okay. So trying to keep it short and sweet, as short and sweet as I can. There's just so much information to go over here. I just want to kind of feed it to you a little bit at a time. And the first big thing to take away from this is understanding that weather and understanding when to make those moves. Next week, what we're going to talk about is digging into that information. What does the information that you currently have, that historical information, what does that information have for those breadcrumbs that can lead you down that path to gain more intel? When should you be moving? So between now and then, if you're following along with this, a big thing that you can do is start compiling a list of all your historical trail camera data of the buck that you're chasing. Or maybe you have a couple bucks, but I would look at however many bucks are on your radar right now and prioritize either a deer that you really, really want to go after or a deer that you think is the most huntable. Like you have the most consistent daytime pictures of that deer. If you're getting consistent daytime pictures of that deer, then there's a lot of promise in pursuing that deer. If all you ever have is nighttime pictures, it's a little bit trickier. Not saying it's not possible. There might just be a camera setup. We got to analyze that situation. But if you only have like that one random blurry nighttime picture of this huge buck at 3 o'clock in the morning, that's probably not the deer. Okay, we can learn from that maybe, but we have to grab those breadcrumbs and just start choking in more and more and more. So bucks with more consistent activity on your property, that's where I would start. That's where you have the most data. Start compiling that list, date, time, location. That's all we need to know right now. And then if you go from there and you get a decent list, then I go back to that weather history, wonderground.com/history, and I look at each one of those dates and I log what the AM wind direction is and the PM wind direction. Those two things are going to help me understand where that deer was bedding and how that deer was moving in the evening. Okay. Those two things. We're going to cover the rest of that in detail next week. Until then, good luck if you get out in the woods, even though it's a terrible weekend to hunt if you're in the Midwest, so don't burn your credits. Get your honey-do list done. Get caught up on stuff. I personally will be at an Acres USA and Restoration Agriculture, Agroforestry, Water Management workshop all weekend. I know it's a whole mouthful, but there's a lot that goes into land management and can never stop learning. So that's where I'll be this weekend and then catching up on work next week. But I am in the process of getting everything ready to go out and pursue an early season buck. I love to get it done early. I have a love-hate relationship with the rut, is what it is. So until then, if you go out, hunt smart, hunt safe, and remember, wind is king. If you have any questions, I would love for them to be dropped in the comment section on this, and I will address them next week. This is going to be a weekly consistent thing. If you want to send me a message, if you want to book a call, if you want to book a consultation, you can do those things too. But again, my main goal for this segment or series is to help you as much as possible right now. Habits, then habitat. How can we make the most of this fall? And then as the season progresses, we will start transitioning into looking into the future because every year is a building year. So how can we transition into the future and start improving whatever's going on in your property? Fine tweaks, stand setups, micro adjustments, maybe macro type adjustments, macro improvements. You need to log, you need to do all those things, but that's later. Right now, we're in it. We're in it. So I got to bounce. I got to go check on some client properties. Got to look at some food plots. I still got one round of food plot work left to do, top dressing everything with cereal rye. And yeah, just kind of doing a once over here before season kicks off. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Let me know that this is valuable to you. Take care.